don't usually wear makeup, but I'm trying for these videos. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new. I'm Camilla and today I'm doing a May wrap-up. So let's get into numbers. I read 10 books in May, which I'm very pleased with, and there was one book by a man, so you know, I'm diversifying from April when I read 0 books by men. There was 1 poetry collection and 2 non-fiction. The split in those was also, I think it was 4 audiobooks and 6, I think they were all ebooks actually. I don't think I read any of my physical TBR this month. The first book I read in May was, well, I guess I didn't really read it as much as I listened to it, was Emma by Jane Austen. So I'm done now. We're in June and I've finished all of the Jane Austen's. This was the penultimate one and I enjoyed it. I didn't really know that much about Emma until I watched the movie last year, which I really enjoyed. I did see some differences, I feel like, with the actual book, which I think the movie did a really good job basically getting Emma to empathize a bit more. So I feel like there was a lot of things that I don't think that she made as many amends in the book as she did in the movie, but it was still really interesting and I really liked it. And I have a video coming up with all of my Jane Austen ranking and thoughts. Then I read The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. I have made a whole video review, so I'll link it below and you can go and hear more about my thoughts about this really beautiful love story, which, you know, maybe turns a bit toxic in the end. Then I read The Diary of a Bookseller by Shaun Bythell. I kind of mentioned in my May TBR, this is a non-fiction about, well, Shaun Bythell, who is a bookseller. The title is very descriptive, basically. So Bythell owns a bookshop in Wigtown in the south of Scotland, and it kind of, the diary goes on, you know, like the daily stuff that he does, the daily people he meets into the bookshop, where he goes to buy old used books, and I guess his relationship with the towns, the festival, with his employees. It's very good. So it has this grumpy Scottish character to it, but it's very kind of inspiring when you think about readers and people who buy books. So it'll kind of, I know for me, it made me wish I had a bookshop. I guess especially in the last year, you know, like a quieter life has been kind of lovely like that. Then I read The Little Teashop in Tokyo by Julie Kaplan. It's really funny because when I finished reading it, I realized that I read another book by her, but completely kind of by accident. And I had thought very similar things as this one. So I read The Northern Lights Lodge, I think that's what it was called, based in Iceland. And it's basically this woman who flees over there to take care of a hotel, and she kind of, I guess, kind of gets used to Icelandic folklore and people and kind of grows in confidence. So this book is based in Japan and is almost the same exact storyline. This woman goes to Japan, she wins a trip. She literally knows nothing about Japan, which I thought was bizarre. And also, I get wanting to travel to learn more, but also you'd think you'd know the basic stuff. Like, she doesn't know tempura and there's stuff like that I was just kind of a bit put off by. It felt very much like white colonial gaze a little bit, and I appreciate like reading these kind of cozy travel books where the characters are usually obviously white and kind of European or American, and they travel. And I know I love to travel, so I love to kind of see those perspectives, but I feel like it's a little bit tone deaf in my opinion. I don't know, I had mixed feelings about it because of, if I want to learn more about Japan or culture, I feel like I would rather read it directly from someone from there, or I feel like there's maybe a little bit of a gap in terms of like the cultural knowledge, like of this person learning about Japan. She does stay with like a Japanese family, which is potentially for me the most interesting bits of the book. But yeah, I've kind of become more into like, you know, the whole own voices thing, and if I want to learn about a different culture and read about people, I wish that there was more of like maybe a kind of authentic look into that rather than more of a traveler and kind of wide gaze upon it. The next book that I read was A Black Girl Called Home by Jasmine Mans. I thought that was incredible, I have to say. It was so vivid, and it was heart-wrenching, and it was an amazing poetry collection. It was basically like a gut punch, because I guess poetry sometimes has that, especially when it kind of goes into belonging and identity. Anyway, for me it does that, and I thought that she did it very, very well. There are different kind of sections, so some of them are more about, I guess, a bi or lesbian experience. Some of them are about assault, and there's quite a lot about like rape, forced sterilization, assault. So obviously if that's emotionally expensive to you and if that triggers you, potentially that's not the best thing to read. But if you're kind of ready to approach that, this is a really beautiful poetry collection by Mans about, I guess it has a lot of the, you know, women of color experience, and it touches on so much, and it is very descriptive, and it's full of life, really, is how I can describe it. So I think I would give it a 5. It's beautiful. I recommend it if you're looking for a more modern poetry collection to dig your teeth into. Then I read Mongol by Uuganaa Ramsay. So this writer is actually from Mongolia, and I feel like I heard about this book. I don't know where and I don't know when, but I had heard about this book. So when I saw it on my library app, I was like, oh yeah, and I picked it up right away. And because she's based in Scotland now, I feel like it must have been at like a local festival or something like that. But it was incredible. So basically it opens up with her giving birth to her 3rd child and realizing that he has Down syndrome. And then it comes like the little moment when they say, oh, we weren't sure because of your Mongolian features. And obviously like it kind of reminded me like that back in the previous century, people with Down syndrome were called Mongol, and it is, I guess because it was based on the fact that they had like similar features, I don't really know. It was really interesting in terms of the learning about her Mongolian identity, and that was like amazing part of the book when she talks about growing up in Mongolia, and it's not only from her childhood, but also, you know, when she goes to school and university, and the first time that she leaves and takes a plane to, you know, come to, I think she comes to London, and it was like incredible. And that's juxtaposed with moments of her learning and trying to deal with her son having Down syndrome and then being diagnosed with severe disabilities and illnesses on top of that. Yeah, it was a short read, really, really beautiful read. I think it'll be really touching, especially to mothers, but I think if you want to learn about Mongolian culture and traditions and lifestyle, obviously this is based, I think, like mostly like 70s and 80s or something like that, so it is quite potentially dated, but it's more about the tradition, and it was beautiful, and I really, really recommend it. Then I read The Cunning Woman by Elizabeth Lee. So I did my first vlog a couple weeks ago, and I discussed a little bit my thoughts on that book, which is kind of technically about witchcraft, but kind of falls heavily into the star-crossed lovers kind of. I had mixed feelings. I thought it was okay, it was a good read, but I wish it kind of gone into more of the witch angle and less of the witch hunt angle, I guess. But still an interesting read if you like historical fiction. But I will link below for my vlog, and you can hear more of my thoughts on that, as well as see some videos of me traveling outside of Scotland for the first time in like a year and a couple months. Then next was Luckenbooth by Jenni Fagan. This is a new Scottish book. I think it was released in 2021. And it basically discusses, it's almost like it's not really generational because it's not actually familial links, but it's basically this one building in Edinburgh, a tenement, which is like an apartment building, and basically goes through generations. So it starts with a woman who curses the people who are going to live in that building. And then you follow characters along the different, I guess, timelines, so that I feel like this is it starts in the 1800s, but I may be wrong, sorry. And then it comes all the way into like the 1980s or 90s, I think. So it was really good. It was really moody and creepy and descriptive, and there was a really, really Scottish quality to it that I feel like would potentially pass over people's head if they don't know Scotland, because there's a lot of things about Edinburgh especially that, you know, you may not be able to kind of picture if you don't know it. Also, something that I thought about was that I listened to the audiobook and I don't think I would recommend it because it was extremely difficult to kind of follow what was going on because it jumps characters and then each character comes back for like 2 chapters I think only, and then it jumps like time period and characters, and yeah, so it's almost more like a series of short stories that has a link basically to the building and to the curse, and sometimes you see like the ghosts are coming back, you know, like you get all of these characters who kind of keep popping back in and out, but only in mention or slight presence. It had like a very like mystical quality to it that I think was really interesting, and it felt very much like literary historical fiction, if that's something that interests you. But yeah, I definitely don't think I would recommend the audiobook. It was really good performances, but I just thought it was really difficult for this genre or this style of book to follow along. Then I listened to the audiobook, which was much easier to follow. Death Comes to Pemberley by P.D. James. And really out of nowhere, I learned that P.D. James actually wrote the book Children of Men that, you know, the movie is based on, and I was mind blown because I was like, those are two such different genres, and I was like, this woman is excellent. I really like That Comes to Pemberley. Lydia and Wickham arrive, and then, you know, a murder happens, and it's kind of the investigation that comes after that, and all of the familial relationship of almost like a sequel. So this is almost like a 10 years later kind of thing, I think, which is really interesting, and it was really well done because sometimes these modern sequels are done in a way that I don't think is very faithful to how the books had been written, especially when it's, you know, 300 years old. But this was really good. I'd also really enjoyed the TV series, which is how I came to know about this book. I think it's like a short, limited time series, and it is very, very good as well. And it was, I think, available on Netflix in North America, but that was a while ago, so I don't know. But yeah, if you like Jane Austen and if you like crime fiction, this marries two genres and you will probably like it as much as I did. And finally, the last book that I read in May was My Brilliant Friend by Elena Ferrante and translated by Anne Goldstein. So this was for my year of translation, so May was in Italy, and I picked My Brilliant Friend mostly because I'd been hearing so many things about it for ages. And I hadn't been sure if I wanted to read it, and some of the feelings I had before the book were definitely became true. So the difficult female friendship is definitely very real, and I had issues with it, but it was still really well written, really well done. I'm very aware, I read it in English, that it was a translation. At the same time, my mom was reading it in French, and the way that she was talking about it, I feel like maybe I want to pick up a French copy for the second one, because maybe the translation will be closer from Italian to French than Italian to English. But that's me having like 5% knowledge of Italian saying that. But yeah, I'll maybe wait till next year if I get to go home next year about picking the second one at that point. I finished it not wanting to jump into the second one, so that kind of tells you a bit how I felt. It was extremely kind of difficult and rough. It's based like in 1950s, mostly Italy, so like post-war. There was a lot of stuff that was like not said that I didn't even get until I talked to my mom or I read stuff online, like about the mafia and stuff like that. Because it's the first person narrative and it's a child, I find sometimes it's really difficult to believe the narrator, and you don't know if what they say or believe is real. Because, well, first, I feel generally about first person narrative that is like that, because everyone has a bias, you know, so them saying this person did that or thought that, it's like, well, you don't really know, do you? So there was a lot of that, but I think it was a really exceptionally well done kind of look and dive into almost like the psyche of a young woman growing up, especially of that era, which potentially is what I didn't really connect that well with, and my mom maybe did because it is, you know, from a previous generation. But, you know, of growing up a woman with friendships, you know, there was a lot of that was really beautiful. I thought I would at some point move on, but, you know, the book ends, I think there are 16. So it is, I think there are 4 books in the series. So obviously I'm hoping the next one will be maybe more my age, or like maybe 20s, early 30s. so we shall see. And that I can kind of see the evolution of those characters, because it felt very stuck in kind of petty young children, teenagers kind of attitudes, which I totally get, obviously. But I wanted like more of a growth. So I would recommend it. It is very interesting female characters. So if that's something you're into, which you know I am, you'll probably be fascinated by it. Doesn't mean you'll love the story. Like, I didn't really love the story itself, but the characters was really fascinating. All right, that's it. Thank you so much for joining me for this May wrap up. It was really fun to just kind of talk and rant a little bit about each book and kind of remember. I think maybe in the next month I'll be kind of chatting and reviewing as I go, so I remember a bit more each book. But yes, let me know if you've read any of them, because I know sometimes I kind of read books that are a bit random that I've not heard much about, like Mongol, which is one I really recommend of all of the 10 books that I've talked about. And yeah, please subscribe if you haven't already for more book content every Tuesday, and leave a thumbs up, and hey, see you back.